Okay, I'm going to follow that up with a second question. So if women fought for the right to work and have careers and be able to be independent, have their own money and have an education, do you think that it's a privilege for a woman to be able to stay home with her children? Like if I said, oh, well, I stay home with my kids and my husband works, would you say, well, not all women have that privilege? So I'm asking, is it a privilege to be a stay-at-home mom, or are you oppressed if you're a stay-at-home mom?
I think people would look at it both ways. Personally, I think it is a privilege because, as we were talking about earlier, like she also said just now, most women were forced to go to work, which they didn't want to. They wanted to stay home. So in that case, it would be a privilege, but then for other cases, it would be oppression. But I would think it was a privilege.
Okay, number 2, what do you think?
I agree. I think it is a privilege for a woman to stay at home, but I also think it depends on the woman, like whether or not you want to, like if the man is able to be the one providing.
Okay. What about 3?
I think if your husband makes enough to where you guys can do that, I think that's a pretty good thing. I think it's a privilege.
Okay. What about number 4?
I think if your husband is wealthy enough to support you and your entire family, and you can just stay at home, take care of your kids, like not really have to worry about making money yourself in your career, then that is a privilege.
Okay.
I think overall, I think it's a privilege. At the same time, I know that if I had a child, while I'd want to be able to stay home with them, and especially their more formative years, I also would need some sort of other work beyond just my kid, because I wouldn't want to just feel like I lost myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 6.
Yeah, I think...
Sorry, guys, I don't have your names here, so I'm just going by your chair number.
It always depends on the case, but I think it's a privilege in some cases, as mentioned before.
Yes, I think it's a privilege to stay at home. I think it's a wonderful thing to be stay-at-home mom, housewife. If your husband can support it, then yeah.
A privilege.
Okay, so I want you guys to think about the fact that when we went around with both those questions, everybody said, yes, women had to fight for the right to be able to get an education and have a career. And then everyone also said, but if you can stay home with your children, you are privileged. How could that be the case? How could it be both? How could it be that you had to fight, women had to fight and blaze a trail and a path to be able to work outside the home and have their own money and careers, but also if you can stay home with your children, that you're privileged? Because wouldn't they only have been fighting for the right to have careers and education if they were oppressed before when they were staying at home? By the way, I want to mention something else. In all my research, in every culture around the world, there has never been any law I'm aware of where women were expressly forbidden from working. So if you have this idea that women weren't allowed to work or women weren't allowed to be educated, there may be some countries like India where perhaps girls can't go to school, or parts of Africa, but I'm mainly talking about the Western world in America where we all are. Women have always been allowed to work, but before feminism and before the Industrial Revolution, it didn't make sense. Why? Because if you had the average woman in the year 1800 had 7 children, 7 births, probably a few of them might not make it to adulthood, but if you had 7 births, why on earth would you want a career outside the house? I mean, what are you gonna do, pay daycare for 7 kids? And here's the other thing. You guys are talking about women should have a career if they're gonna be moms, and we can just pay daycare or have family come in. And it's like, you realize that that's really stupid. And here's why, because how does it make sense for me to say, you know what, I'm a mom, but I deserve a career, and I'm ambitious, and I have career goals, and I need to be able to work. So I'm gonna hire this other woman to come in and do the mothering for 8 or 9 hours a day while I'm gone. Well, what about that woman? She doesn't deserve a career? All you're doing is shifting the stuff over, right? So earlier somebody said, well, why can't the dad stay home? I wanna know what you guys think about that. Do you guys think it's the same if dad stays home? Do you think that it's just as good if dad's staying home if everybody did that, it'd be fine.
Can we address the entire question, or would you like us
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever you guys want to say, we can just kind of open it up.
So, I kind of see, I see what you're saying. It's kind of like we look like we want to have our cake and eat it too kind of concept, but it's more so, as I would say I think it is, that we fight to go to work so that we have money to pay bills, we have money to put food on the table and do things like that. That's why we get our jobs. But then we would also like to be at home and stay with our children and stuff like that. So I see it in your way, but then I also see it in mine. And your other question was, I'm sorry, about...
Well, do you think that it's the same if dad stays home? Because that was something that came up earlier in the panel, because I don't remember which one of you said it to Andrew, but you were like, well, why can't the dad just stay home? Why does it have to be me? Right?
And yeah,
why should it be mom that stays home, do you think?
Well, I think personally, the dad can stay home as well. I think either as long as there is a parent present, it's, great both ways.
So what do you think would happen if society-wide, let's say that, women are strong and they're rising, they're getting more college degrees than men are today, which, by the way, that's not very new. Women have had higher literacy rates and higher high school graduation rates in the United States since we started tracking those numbers in 1790. And I can get to why later, but what if we shifted everything and suddenly the next generation, 80% of the children are raised by the dads. The dads stay home and the moms go to work. Do you think that that would work for society, like on a society-wide level? I see number 2 shaking her head no. Why do you think that might not work?
Because I believe that if your kid is raised from a mother or a father, it's different. There's some stuff that a mother can't provide that a father can provide, but there's also a lot of stuff that a father can't provide that a mother can.
True, that's true, but it's even simpler than that. Do you know what the top 20 most important and dangerous jobs are? If you look at job statistics, the top 20 jobs that we need the most, that are most important to keeping this whole infrastructure running. So you guys are all sitting here in a studio, there's lights, there's camera, it's a concrete building, you're up on the, you're up in this building with windows and there's electricity, we have internet, right? All this infrastructure is built by men. So all of the stuff you need to keep society running, logging, engineering, concrete mixing and laying, all forms of construction, power line work, cell phone towers, everything infrastructure related, those are the most dangerous, the most difficult, and the most important jobs. And they are occupied by anywhere from 80 to 99% men. If you look at concrete work, it's 99.8% men. Women don't lay concrete. Do you think that society would keep going if we had all the concrete layers at home raising the kids? What if all of the men who run the telecommunications, your cell phone, your Wi-Fi, your high-speed internet, what if all the men who build those systems, fix them when they go down, what if they were all at home raising babies? What if all of the power linemen, the guys who go out, we just had this massive bunch of hurricanes in the southeast and knocked out the power to all of Appalachia and all of Florida for a couple of weeks. All the people who go in there and rebuild that and rescue people from the floods and rebuild everything, that's all men. So what do you think would happen if we had an economy where all the women went to work and the men stayed home? Do you know what the top 20 jobs occupied by women are? They're the same top 20 jobs occupied by women 100 years ago. So if you look at the top 20 most female jobs in 1920 and the top 20 most female jobs in 2020, they're almost exactly the same. All we did was swap HR and farm work. So more women did small-time farm work back then, and more of them do HR now. But other than that, women are early childhood educators, teachers, nurses, bookkeeping, retail workers, food service industry workers, things like that. So men and women are not interchangeable. Moms and dads are not interchangeable. So this idea that I can be a strong, independent boss, babe, and I'll just outsource the child care, or dad can just stay home. You could argue that that's fine on some individual levels, but if we make this the society-wide expectation, everything that allows you girls to think that you are strong, independent boss babes who can do it on your own crumbles. It disappears. It turns to dust. There's no more Wi-Fi. There's no more electricity. Kiss your air conditioning goodbye. There's nobody to fix your car when it breaks. You don't have gasoline because there's no oil rig workers, getting the gas that you use to drive your car. So basically, this is all kind of Delulu land stuff. This idea that we can just do whatever we want. And it just depends on my personal preference and, it'll all be fine. So, a lot of what Andrew tries to get you guys to think about is what you want on a personal level is not the only question here. It's not the only moral question. It's not the only thing to consider. There's a greater good. Society has to work together as a whole. So I know I just threw a lot at you, but does anybody have anything they want to jump in on?
With me specifically, my mom actually had to hide her pregnancy because in Thailand, when you are found out that you are having a baby or has a baby, you have to stop working completely, and you're expected to take care of the child, and then later your expected child is supposed to help support your family.
Okay. I'm not sure if I would say that's good or bad. There are some ethical issues or concerns I would have when we're discussing kind of Christian societies versus non-Christian societies, and that's a whole other topic. But in general, I would say that pregnant women, nursing mothers, mothers of young children should be at home with those children. If you look at the statistics in 1940, only about 6% of American women who had children under 5 worked outside the home. Now that number is 58%. It's super high. Most little babies and little children's moms spend most of their day at the office. And as a mother, 95% of all the time you'll ever spend with your child is gone by the time they turn 18. You don't ever get those years back. You don't ever get to do that over. You don't ever get that time. So to me, you're taking a precious, finite gift that you have. You're taking this limited time of your life, a short time in your life that you get to spend raising your own children, and you're giving it away to somebody else, some $11, $12 an hour daycare worker, because you think being at the office is more important. And I understand completely that we're brainwashed and propagandized to think that. I was told all the time, from the time I was little, you have to go to college, you have to have a career, you have to have your own money, because if you don't, what? What do they say will happen to you? If you don't have your own money, if you don't have your own job, what's going to happen? You'll get trapped. A man could abuse you. What if he leaves you? What if he dies? What if he cheats? But nobody ever asks, wait, what if I spend all of my years going to college to be a surgeon, right? I want to be a neurosurgeon, a really important job. I'm shooting for the stars. Nobody ever says, well, wait a second, what if you get in an accident and your arm gets broken and you can't do surgery? Or what if you get arthritis and you can't use the scalpel anymore? What if your eyesight goes bad and you can no longer perform surgery? Nobody fearmongers women about all the things that can go wrong when you base your whole life around your career. They only fearmonger women about what could go wrong if they base their life around being a wife and mother. And I just think you guys probably don't ever get a chance to hear anybody say that to you, so I wanted the chance to say it.
I actually really appreciate hearing a different perspective, and I feel like you're very well-knowledge, so it's very interesting what you have to say. So thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad that you guys wanted to listen. But if anybody has an objection or a counter argument, or you're listening to me and you're well, wait a minute, but what about this, Rachel, or what about that? I'm happy to hear it if you have any objections or other thoughts about that.
I think that it is perfectly fine. I agree with your viewpoint. You should be there in your child's formative years. I also think that I want a choice that where maybe I don't know if I see a future with having kids in it, and if I want to be that neurosurgeon, if I want to be an anesthesiologist, whatever, that I can do that without having to worry about someone saying you're wasting all your childbearing years, or you want to be a stay-at-home wife. Like I said again, my mom's a stay-at-home mom. I love her. I think being a stay-at-home mom's amazing, but I also think that a lot of women their mothers weren't allowed to have the choice to do what they want or be who they wanted because they were raising them. And I think that if they, maybe they don't want kids and they do want to pursue their career goals, that they should be free to.
Okay, so you guys were talking earlier about South Korea and how it has the lowest birth rate on planet Earth right now, which it does. It's like 1.6 child per woman. But did you know that the whole world, except for a handful of African countries and Israel, are well below replacement and have been for a long time? If you guys follow Elon Musk on Twitter, he's probably the most famous person who's talked a lot about the birth rate collapse and what it could mean. And so basically in the year 2024, we've got planet-wide logistics that have pretty much wiped out hunger. The only places where there's still hunger, there's kind of like extenuating circumstances, reasons why that's still a problem. But in all the developed nations, like nobody has starved to death in the United States for many decades. It's not a thing. And the reason that's the case is because we had this big population boom during the Industrial Revolution, another baby boom after World War II, and with all of the time and human capital and brilliance of people, problem solving, and just more people in general, we've been able to eradicate a lot of problems we used to have with things like hunger, getting resources where they need to go. If we experience population collapse, which we are, if it keeps going where it's going now, we're going to start having problems, and we're already seeing that. So supply chains, we're already seeing some supply chain failures because there's simply not enough labor. We don't have enough people. It's one of the reasons there's so much illegal immigration, but even the places where those illegal immigrants were coming from, their populations are now well below replacement rates. So we're running out of people to even import. Places like Japan and Canada don't have enough young people to support the elderly populations. There's just not enough young people to, pay into the social security system or work at nursing homes or work in senior health care to take care of the elderly. So again, we can say it's really nice, I want the chance to follow my dream of being a neurosurgeon. And I'm sure there's always gonna be some women who do that. But let me ask, how many of the women here have a college degree? Everybody raise your hand if you got a degree. There's, a lot of you. Okay, what's your degree in? Just go around and just tell me real quick what your degree is in.
Start with you.
I have my associates in social and behavioral sciences.
Okay, and next?
Just associates.
Okay, in what? What field?
In like mathematical.
Okay, next. Number 5, do you have a?
Psychology, but I don't really intend to use my degree. I just wanted to get it.
Yeah, psychology is probably the most oversaturated and most female field at the moment, so it's tough to get a good paying job. And then next, what's yours?
I'm currently obtaining a BA in Psych and Brain.
Okay, and next?
Health science.
Health sciences, okay, next?
Poli-sci and econ.
Okay. Are all of you, so one of you said you're not intending to work in the field. Are the rest of you all intending to have careers in the field you're getting a degree in? Okay. And did you, probably, most of you said yes. Did you notice that it's usually the same stuff? Like I was saying, it's like healthcare, it's psychology, it's like behavioral stuff. Most of you aren't going to be like structural engineers. Most of you aren't going to be like building life-saving medical devices or, any of those like super essential jobs. Nursing, there's some things you could argue are pretty essential, but men could do those jobs too. So why would it not be smarter to have all of you ladies here, if we had raised you different, if we had raised you to say, being a virtuous woman who is a good mother and a good wife and a good caretaker and a good member of the community. You're doing all the community stuff women used to do, like organizing community functions and church things and programs for kids and just all those support roles that women used to do. Would it be a better world if we were raising all of you girls to do that instead of raising you to start your OnlyFans, go to college, earn a degree? By the way, I bet a lot of you have some college debt. The average woman has like $40,000 in college debt after she graduates. So now you're having to go into your 20s with a whole bunch of debt and a degree that you may or may not be able to find a job in, that you may or may not like the job. right? And you're forgoing all of the childbearing years to chase that stuff. Do you think that that's like a net positive? Do you think that's a smart, like if you were king of the nation or queen of the nation, would that be how you'd want to organize things?
Can I say, I just wanted to say that I get why you're asking this line of question. I just don't see it being asked to men a lot. Like, why did you choose to be a neurosurgeon? Why don't you just, do this line of work instead? Why did you choose to be ambitious? Like, I feel like it's so directed at women. Like, why did you choose to, leave your virtuous woman duties and pursue a career? But I really don't see that asked to men, and I understand why. I understand there's traditional duties assigned to men and women, but, societies change, and I don't understand why we still have to go through this line of questioning.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because the current state of things is completely unsustainable. People ask me all the time, what do you think is going to happen? How do we battle feminism? How do we battle the problems in modernity that we have with falling birth rates and broken families, high divorce rates, and people not even bothering to get married anymore, and nobody having babies? What should we do, Rach? How do we fix this? And I'm like, it's a self-correcting problem, because this situation is totally unsustainable. The future, if everybody turns out, if all the young women are raised like you girls and they have your mentality, and this is not a dig at any one of you individually, because I understand exactly the world you were raised in, the propaganda you were raised with, everything from pop music to movies to every TV show you've ever watched tells you you need to be a strong, independent woman and have a career and follow your dreams and all that stuff. I get it. But the future, if everybody follows your path, there is no future. There's no world, because there's no people, there's nobody to keep the lights on, and humanity dies out. And the reason why, when you say, why do we have to endure this line of questioning, it's because only one of us can have the babies. The men can't have the babies. They can't gestate a child for 9 months and birth it and nurse it and raise it. And we need the men to be making the world livable for the only people who can do that, which is women. So all of the other jobs, all the careers we've talked about, those careers exist to support one occupation, one purpose, which is being a mother. The world around you, the reason it's built is so that future generations can be born. That's the only reason for it. What good is a world full of technology and robots and Wi-Fi and electricity if no one's gonna be born into it, if we're having like one child per woman? In fact, in the United States, we have rising mortality rates for the first time since the Industrial Revolution. We're the only developed nation in the world that has rising mortality rates, meaning more women are dying in childbirth than years past. It's on the rise. Why would that be? Anybody take a guess as to why mothers would be dying more in childbirth in America now than they were the last 60, 70 years?
They start having babies later on in their life.
You got it. That's exactly right. The rising maternal age is the reason for that. So having babies when you're 35 plus is a lot riskier. It's a lot riskier to the mom, it's riskier to the child. And what happens when we train women to do education and career first and then think about family when they're in their 30s, 40s, you maybe get 1 to 2 children. That's it. So I understand on an individual level, you might be annoyed and be like, well, but my dream of, whatever you wanted to do, I think you said some kind of healthcare related field. I mean, that's cool and everything, but you won't have a world. There won't be a world left for you to do anything in if we don't have kids. So I've asked this question before, but I want to ask you guys going around. If it was the case that you had a choice, you could either do what you want with your life, you could follow your dreams and have a career, and if you do that, if all of you did that, the human race dies out in 300 years from now. Or if all of you decide, okay, we're gonna have children and be moms, but you don't get to chase your personal dreams and your career goals and your material ambitions, but the human race gets to survive, which would you pick?
Personally, I would choose my career just because I don't want children. And although that doesn't really matter to this exact question, I think that we're all gonna die at some point. And I mean, if you're not living your life for you, then what are you living it for? I mean, I don't know. That's my personal opinion, though. Everybody else could be different.
All right, what about number 2?
Well, you said something earlier about how like it's mainly men who are doing the engineering and like the lighting and stuff. But I'm currently in engineering, and there's been like a lot of women in engineering too. And this might be like a sidetrack, but what would happen like to those women who are chasing after that degree? Would they just not achieve it then?
Yeah, so in the hypothetical scenario I just laid out, yeah, I'm just asking you personally, if they came to you and they said, look, ladies, we're recruiting moms because otherwise we're projecting that humanity's gonna die out in 300 years. So we're asking you, please stay home and have children, but I mean, we're gonna let you choose your career if that's what you wanna do, but if you do that, if most of you do that, you know, we only got about 300 years left before humanity dies out.